Hey guys, I'm Kate. Welcome back to my channel. I am filming outside because I've been car camping the past few days nearby Zion National Park, and I'm testing out my mic for the first time. I'm going to hope that it works. There's a wild turkey. Welcome to this part of the world. Now, with the end of Camp NaNoWriMo, that means that it is the start of May, and that means it's also the time that I will start rereading this beauty. For those of you who've been following my channel for the past month and a half or so, you probably would have seen when I printed out the draft of my novel. And that was still such an amazing feeling. That turkey, y'all. Don't come closer. Don't come closer. Project Blue, a name affectionately suggested by Kayla Rain Reads, and I took it and ran with it. I even texted my beta readers right after and was like, y'all, let's call it Project Blue, because I still don't have a name for this story and I'm on draft 3 now. And that's one of the many things that I will get to and my thoughts about this project before I reread it. It's so close now. It's fine, it's just a really big bird. Can y'all see it? But before I get into all of my thoughts, I want to talk a little bit about what draft 3 means for me and kind of like the timeline that led up to this point. This story is my YA pirate fantasy novel. I've been chronicling a little bit about it on my channel, so I will link up above and down below some videos that are very specific to it. But I initially did some fumblings with the story way back in early 2015. I wrote down some quick ideas, some names, which I don't use in the story at all now. So that's my point. Very quick fumblings. Then I consider my zero draft, my nano draft, the one I wrote in NaNoWriMo of November 2016. The heart of the story was there, but the plot's changed. Over 50% of the plot has changed. I've taken out some characters, I've added some characters, that kind of thing. And that's why for me, I call it a zero draft. I know some people don't like that phrase because they think it means it's like not worth anything, like this zero connotation. But honestly, for me, so much will still change after, like so much, that zero draft feels just more apt, because when I get to the first draft, which I did spanning March to August 2017, that story is when the story's really there. You know, the plot finally has some semblance of like what a book would read like. All of my stuff before is the quickest of drafts, and that's how I do all of my projects, are these zero drafts, and it helps me to get as many ideas out on paper and then see which ideas I like and which I don't. I will go in so many different avenues from my zero draft that this is the biggest change for me for the story, from the zero draft to the first draft. Draft 2, I started a little bit in NaNoWriMo of last year while I was writing an entirely new sci-fi project. I was working on this story, and then from about January to April, when y'all would have seen me finish. And draft 3 is right now, starting in May of 2018. And I mention all of this because someday I'd like to talk about how long it takes to take a novel from the very beginning to the end. And I want to use some authors that I've seen document their process just to get an idea, because I feel like people think that it's instantaneous, like other people, non-writers, but then I also think that some writers, you know, when they're first starting out are like, why aren't I farther along? It takes a long time to write a story, you guys. A long time to get it from first inkling of an idea to like completed novel, but that will come later. Okay, so even though I've given this guy an appropriate amount of wait time, you know, I gave it about a month and a week or so. You know, could I have waited a little bit longer? Sure, but I feel pretty good about the time that I've waited now, because again, this is draft 3. The words themselves have melted away, which I think is going to allow me to read it like an actual story, which is what you need to start the next draft. But of course, during this time while I was waiting and participating in Camp NaNoWriMo, it's not like I could completely shut out the thoughts about this story. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And the thing is that while I didn't come up with any big changes or any changes at all, actually, it was more just worries. And that's what I want to talk about. So here are all the things I've been worried about, I've been thinking about, and I've been brainstorming before I reread my story, which I'm going to do as soon as I finish this video. The first thing is that since I ended up Frankensteining the last third of it all together with all the timeline errors I was having, I'm super anxious about how a couple of the minor characters are going to read it, even one of the major characters, Matthias. I changed when certain information was revealed about him to the main character, and then the time frame of their joint conspiracy. So I'm kind of just apprehensive that I didn't do it well enough and that it's going to be confusing. Ooh. The second thing is that I'm worried that I made my main character unlikable, and I kind of hate that phrase when you're talking about characters, but of course I know all of her motivations. They are very clear to me, the writer. But are they clear to the reader? Mostly about her struggle with relationships and the fear that she's turning into kind of like her runaway mother. Like, I want all of her worries to make sense, but I also want it to make sense why her actions are contrary to those worries. The third thing is just frickin' description, y'all. I am never going to be one of those writers who is very verbose or someone who just has like the most beautiful prose full of descriptions and imagery, and that's just not me. It's not something I'm good at, and it's honestly not even something that I like reading all the time. But my personal struggle is always if I've written enough description, because I enjoy the marriage between writer and reader, that the reader would be kind of coming up with some things on their own, that it's a blend of what the writer is saying and their imagination. I like that. My question is, did I do enough so that the reader's not just like, huh? The fourth thing is that I still need an effing title, like I mentioned. Maybe what I'm going to do is that in the next couple of days, I'm just going to brainstorm a huge page worth of potential titles and then shoot those over to my beta readers after they're done and be like, do any of these work? Which ones definitely don't work? And on and on. And finally, the fifth thing I've been thinking about, and to end everything on a positive note, is that I'm so freaking excited to read this, you guys. Like, it is the kind of book that I'd want to pick up off of a bookshelf at a bookstore or from the library. Like, I still really like the story. I like it, and I'm excited to read about it. And I think that's the most important thing. So even though I have all these worries, I'm still pumped about this novel. So those are all of my main thoughts. Most of those, like I mentioned, were worries, but I think part of that is just being a writer and being at this stage in the process, or at least that's what I'm hoping. Now, finally, I want to talk timeline for the future. After my Camp NaNoWriMo failure, I'm a little bit antsy about putting too much work on me while I'm on this road trip, because it's like, I'm trying to pump the brakes a little bit, and to quote my family and friends when I complained about this to them, they're like, boo frickin' who, you're traveling, this is, you know, so awful. And I've said it before, it's a great problem to have, that I have so many awesome things going on that I just like don't have enough time for all of them. But that being said, I don't want to put a deadline or a timeline on me too soon so that I then get anxious about that. So with that being said, here's the plan for this story. Finish reading my book by May 25th. That's about 3 weeks from right now. Chat with Beta Reader 1 on May 30th, chat with Beta Reader 2 on June 2nd. And then maybe on June 3rd, have like a joint meeting with all three of us. And for the month of June, continue all of the planning purposes of the story, reworking any sort of plots or character development as I see I need when I'm done reading. Redrafting is going to be June, July, and August. Then have this story available for my next round of beta readers in September. Then reread and rework up until the point just before line edits. So I do line edits later. I'm going to do that, get it ready in October. And then give myself November off for NaNoWriMo. I'm actually going to put a full stop. Nano is my jam, so nothing's coming in the way of that. So let it sit in November and then do line edits in December. That does mean that I would not be querying it this year if I kept with that schedule, which was one of my goals for 2018, because this is a novel that I'd want to get traditionally published as opposed to indie or self-publishing. But also tons of agents kind of take off December to January-ish anyway, so there's not a huge point in querying around then. Why not keep working on it? It will be fun to compare in a few months where my schedule actually ends up being versus where I think it'll be right now. All right, that's it for me today. Please comment down below and let me know. 1, any stories you have about rereading your own work. 2, if you set a writing schedule by months and so many months in advance. And 3, if you prefer the idea of self or indie publishing your work versus traditionally publishing, and why. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all very soon with a new video. Bye. It means that it is officially. There's someone there. Don't look at me. Okay, they're gone. The little girl pointed and was like, she's got a camera.